from a field of 198 players here in leg number 4 of the Philippine Poker Tour. We are now down to our final table of 10. Who will bring home that top prize of 330,000 pesos? We will find out soon. But first, Ron, you gotta say, this is a tough final table.
I would like to talk about each and every one of them, but we don't have the time. Every single one of these players has a rap sheet that's really long, very decorated, very well known in the poker circles. And any one of them can win. That goes without saying, but really it's the styles that come into play. Will be very interesting to see how they all adjust. They all play multi-levels, these guys.
Okay, now let's get things started. We'll turn you over to our tournament director, Brian Malantic.
Right, the blinds are at 6,000, 12,000, antes at 2,000. Good luck, players. Play your best. Dealer, let's shuffle up and deal.
Ako si Harold Miranda, taga Fairview, age 33. Wala, nakaw lang talaga. No choice ako eh. Low stack. Eh, nagkataon meron ace queen yung kalaban. Frustrating kasi how many hands lang, pero it's worth it naman.
I'm Michael Kua. I'm 32 years old. I'm a former floor manager for poker. Masaya para next time naman. At least experience mo yung ganitong kalaking tournament na kalaban mo makagaling din. Well, hopefully next time makapasok ulit.
I'm Redentor Edok, businessman from Baguio City. Yun lang nilaro ko, na big hand eh. Tapos may queens ako na fold ko kanina. Tama naman, tama yung laro kaso malas lang. Ahead, na bad beat lang.
I'm Ian Breon, I'm 31 years old, from Lopez, Quezon. I still hovered around the 20 big blinds, so it's basically I have to play tight, pick up spots to raise and or shove. So that was basically I cannot play the flop with that stack. Again, pretty disappointing kasi hindi na naman nag-champion, but I may try again.
My name is Edwin Marzan. I'm 37 years old. Bound to lose po siguro talaga yung hand ko. So, ganda naman ng pagkaka-play ko eh. Raise ako, try miss for the blinds. Sabi ko, pagka may baraha, mag-go all in. So, yun naman ang nangyari po talaga.
I'm Rene Pacaira, 38 years old. Nakatira ako sa Makati.
Our leg 3 champion, Rene Pacaira.
Rene, you were back-to-back final table and everyone was looking for you to do the same strategy over and shove a lot. But what was different this time?
Yung mga shinab ko, puro ligid yun. Kasi katulad nung dati, talagang puro basura. Ngayon, kapag kumuha sila ngayon sa akin, basura yung lalaro, mababasa ko to. Kaya puro ligid talaga yung mga tinula ko.
You've been in 2 final tables, but this one is sobrang loaded with talent. A lot of the hype goes kay Jojo Tech. Pero I think there's another guy who can be just as dangerous dyan, si Martin Corpus. Ngayon, ikaw, nakaupo mo sila pareho. Can you tell us sino sa inyo and why ang mas mahirap para sa'yo?
Para sa akin si Martin Corpus, hindi dahil pinasout niya ako. Dahil tight player siya. Masyado siyang pasensyoso. Yan naman ang kailangan natin sa poker. Pag nainip ka, talo ka. Anytime magagawa ng moves to mga to, gagawa ng play, hindi katulad ni Martin Corpus. Talagang magaling yung mga ginagawa.
So Martin Corpus is less likely to make a mistake.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Rene Pacaira, 2 straight final tables, and who'd bet against him, making it 3 in a row. This is the Philippine Poker Tour.
My name is John Tech or Jojo. I'm 27 years old. I live at Pasig. I'm a professional poker player.
We're in the thick of the action here at leg 4 of the Philippine Poker Tour. And one of the players who is really making waves on that final table is none other than Jojo Tech, one of the real, I don't want to say rising stars, I think one of the now the established stars of poker here in the Metro Manila scene. What makes him such a fearsome player?
Well, you're right about not a rising star. The star is definitely up there. A lot of people are looking up to that star and trying to emulate what he does. And one of the things he does, and he's done this a lot at his final table, I'd like to show you, is that he 3-bets a lot. He re-raises a lot of people pre-flop, and it gets them thinking, this guy can't always have the goods. And at some point, they're going to look him up and find out that's the time he has the goods. So in this hand, Bob, Michael Kua has already opened for a pretty standard amount pre-flop. And Jojo Tech is acting behind him. Now, as I've been saying, he's been re-raising people off the pots that they start. And that's how he gets a lot of chips. And now he's picking up chips again. And it looks like he's going to pull the old, what I've been calling a 3-bet.
Yeah, a re-raise is a 3-bet. And Michael Kua, very experienced player himself. So he's probably wondering what Jojo Tech is up to here.
Well, this is one of those situations where he says, I'm going to take a stand, not just for my hand, but for the entire table who's been 3-bet off their hand. He decides to call here, look at a flop, and see if Jojo Tech will slow down. The flop is all ragged, and what Mike's going to find out here is that Jojo's not going to slow down just because the flop is ragged, and just because Mike called it 3-bet. He keeps firing. It's a smallish bet. It's even smaller than the pre-flop raise amount, but it's just the pressure that Mike is lost and out of position, and he has to give it up.
Another hand here, Jojo Tech 9-6 offsuit, raising 45,000.
Now, very aggressive player, as I said, with a wide range of hands. Lakay knows this, has played with him a lot. Decides, I'm gonna play even with 9-8 offsuit. I'm gonna look him up. He sees a flop, figures most of the time, almost all the time, Jojo does not have the queen. He check raises after Jojo makes a continuation bet. This is supposed to be the end of the hand, as far as Lakay is concerned. But no, Jojo's still in there. He makes the call, they're gonna see a turn. And now Lakay has to think about, is this one of those times where Jojo has a queen, or is he just floating me with nothing and gonna try to bully me off the hand later? The jack is kind of a scare card, but Lakay has the initiative now. He has to keep trying to put the pressure back at the guy. The guy puts more pressure on the aggressive player, has to take him down. The pressure doesn't work. Jojo calls a huge bet from Lakay on this turn, and on the river, Lakay is completely lost. He has the initiative, but he's the guy who's lost in this hand. He's been called twice on 2 big bets. He can probably blow him off on this hand if he keeps the initiative, but it's so hard against Jojo Tech.
And Michael De Leon so confused, he checks the river, Jojo checks back, and they end up splitting the pot. They both have queens and nines, 2 pairs with jack kicker.
It's such a disappointing river if you're Lakay, especially after you see the hand. I mean, he lets Jojo Tech get away with a chop here. You can see his face. He knows, I could have fired that river, blown him off that hand. And Jojo's also thinking the same thing, actually. He could have fired that river, blown Lakay off his hand. So when 2 good players meet, there's a lot of mind games going on, and they're not always doing the optimal play. Now here, Jojo Tech opens for a raise. Lakay again is going to move all in on him actually in this hand, thinking, okay, he's opened with 9-6 offsuit before. I'm just gonna blow him off his hand right now and end this spot.
It's the right move at the wrong time because Jojo Tech with the ladies pocket queens, and really that's what happens when you're an aggressive player who's in a lot of pots. People always think you're always going in there with marginal hands, but sometimes you really have the goods.
It's actually, in a manner of speaking, Jojo Tech made Lakay make this mistake, and that's how you play poker. You make other people make mistakes, and you reap the benefits right here.
And of course, Jojo Tech finishes there with kings over queens, full house, and he sends Michael De Leon to the sidelines. Big scalp there from Jojo Tech. Well, Ron Regis, as you called it, Jojo Tech likes the 3-bet. Somebody looked him up and is now on the sidelines. We lose Mike De Leon.
Yeah, Mike De Leon's such an awesome player, and for him to do that with the hand that he had, it only goes to show that there was something else going on. I mean, if you just tuned in, you would think Mike lost his mind. But there was a lot of this going on all throughout the final table, and finally he made a move at the wrong time.
Well, that's poker. That's how it goes here in the Philippine Poker Tour. We'll take a break. More action coming your way after this.
Pangalan ko po si Ronald Di Maano, 31 years old, nakatira sa Pachubilla Street, San Juan City.
Well, Ron, the first time Ronald Bucks Di Maano went deep into a tournament was a few years ago. He had just left his life as a professional pool player because he was inspired by the other guys like Jerome Peña, Mike Takayama, who were doing well, and ended up finishing sixth. Now he's older and wiser. He's gotten a lot more experience, but he's up against some really, really tough players.
The good part is he's back where he wanted to be, where he was 3, 4, 5 years ago. The bad news is you're at a table where you're seeing faces that you do not want to be at the same table with. So it's kind of a catch-22. It's a good news, bad news thing. Now, I was there many years ago when Bucks made that final table. I was railing for my co-coach at the time. And he literally just collapsed. He had a lot of chips, went all the way to the final table, and then at some point just started spewing it off. It wasn't even a matter of not being hold on to it. He was literally giving it away with a few really bad hands. And this time around, many years of experience later, it'll be interesting to see just how much he's grown, especially against the caliber he's up against.
Well, let's see how Mr. Bucks handles the pressure here in the Philippine Poker Tour. Okay, let's go back a few levels. Bucks on the dealer button, and he's going to try and steal some blinds here, which you need to do in a tournament.
Well, yeah, right now he is going to make this steal, and we're going to see that his hand is 3-4 offsuit. It's total garbage, but when it's folded to you, you got to stay aggressive, and Bucks knows that, and he's going to try to make a play for the blinds here. Unfortunately, the caliber player in the blinds, you've got Jojo Tech in the small blind. You're going to see him make a call here with a pretty decent hand.
Jack 10 of clubs. He'll be first to act. Position still with Ronald Di Maano.
Right, so Bucks has options now here. If the flop is favorable, meaning there's an ace on board or it's something he can bet into, he can take this flop down, or he can just completely shut down. His hand is absolute garbage. He chooses to check behind. So at this point, I like that he's given up on the flop. The play was to steal the blinds, didn't work out. He shut down here, but now the turn comes and kind of a fuzzy decision to make the call. He's figuring, is Jojo trying to steal? Can he bluff catch him with the 3 maybe? So he makes that call. The river actually improves his hand now. So the plan has changed. He's no longer stealing. Now he can put in a bet for value, but he doesn't. He just makes the flat call, very passive, very unsure of himself. So what I'm trying to say here, Bob, is that Bucks has improved greatly in the sense that he has certain gears that he goes into. Good play pre-flop, okay to shut down on the flop. On the turn, it could go either way, but on the river, he misses the bet. And the difference between Bucks and a 5-street player like Jojo is Jojo can play all 5 streets really well. Bucks missed the river here.
And here in this hand, Bucks wakes up with pocket aces, the strongest hand pre-flop, and it's always interesting to see how different players play aces, and he makes a pretty standard pre-flop raise, not trying to show that he's got a great hand, which is very good. A lot of the players are folding, but some of the tough players here are playing back at him.
Yeah, he makes a good bet. It's an okay size for me, but he gets called by the 2 best post-flop players at the table. And now the debate with aces, Bob, isn't always it's never should you or should you not play it. Of course you're gonna play it. The debate with aces is how do you get paid as much as possible for it. And the way to do it is just to be straightforward and bet. But now he's up against 2 great post-flop players. Lakay actually hits this flop, checks to Bucks, and it's a rainbow. It's a good chance to get some value for the aces.
And Bucks just checks there, which is a bit unusual because you kind of want to protect your aces on the flop.
Yeah, and now it is a pretty scary card in the turn. Someone could have checked the 10 and now has trips. And it's a little late to try to get aggressive here now because he's guessing. The thing with aces is they have to keep guessing what you have, put you on air, and end up, boom, paying your aces. But now it's the reverse. Bucks is now guessing, does Lakay actually have that 10? My hand is too strong to fold, but he's not sure if he should raise anymore. Ends up flat calling here, where a flop bet could have gotten Lakay to put in more money, both on the flop and the turn. And now the river is gonna come, and it connects to the board, Bob. It's a jack, and the aces are pretty much lost here. He's not gonna fold it. You can see he's not sure where he stands now. Lakay has put out another bet, trying to get value for his queen. Bucks could consider folding here. That's the shocker.
I guess when you have pocket aces, you want to play them aggressively on the flop and try to win the pot early and not let the others improve.
Yes, you have to stay aggressive with it. Let them keep guessing. Now, this could be a function of it's been a long tournament, a long final table, and the first thing that leaves your arsenal when you get tired as a poker player is aggression.
And certainly Bucks being very, very passive on that hand. Ron, you are a coach, mostly an online coach in the Asia Poker Academy. For you, what is the appeal of playing live poker?
Well, playing live poker, the appeal that you don't get online is the physicality of it. I mean, I like to think of poker as a sport, and poker players as athletes. And I never knew how physical a Formula One event was until I tried to drive a go-kart. And it's kind of the same thing with poker. You play for days at a time, 8 hours, 9 hours a day, grind it out in a tournament, and at some point, if you're not prepped for this, your body's going to start to betray you. And I'm not talking about guys fainting in their seats either. I'm talking about little things that a poker player is trying to keep in check.
Primarily his posture and what he does with his hands and with his head and his feet. You remember this hand, right, Bob?
Absolutely. We are here in the turn between Bucks and Georgia Tech. There's a pretty big pot of 324,000. Di Maano has top pair but an iffy kicker. And what goes down here that's interesting, Ron?
Well, he had checked blind on the flop. Georgia Tech had made a bet and Bucks had called. Now there is a turn. It connects. And Bucks has put out a bet here. And what I want you to watch the right hand of Bucks. His posture right now is he's sitting a certain way and he's shuffling his chips with his right hand. And he's waiting for Georgia Tech to act. Now there's a critical moment here when Georgia Tech reaches right there. When Georgia Tech reaches for the chips, just momentarily you see the right hand stop shuffling the chips. That's a signal that his body has diverted energy to his brain to process what is happening right now. Now what that tells a poker player is that Bucks is interested in his hand. If he had fired that bet with the intention to just fold or bluff, he would not need that moment to think. You know, he would not be worried by Georgia Tech's intention to raise. He would just easily fold. There would be no thought involved. So now the raise has been put in by Georgia Tech and Bucks has recovered. His energy is back. His posture has changed slightly. Now, I'm saying this happens deep in a tourney. Early in a tourney, it's easy for a player to just hold his pose and while he's thinking of everything he has to think about. But the energy is fading and it's limited now at the end parts of these tourneys. And in these stretches, another posture change. So now, hand to the mouth is an indication that he doesn't like his hand that much. But we know that he likes his hand enough to continue from the previous, call it a tell. So these things start to be visible when a player is tired. When he's not tired, he can just freeze, hold the pose, keep shuffling his chips, and all the energy he needs for thinking flows fine all throughout his body.
Well, Ron, if ever I see you on the table, I'm never going to cover my mouth with my hand again.
Well, if you have the nuts, cover your mouth with your hand and you fool me into calling you.
So Bucks calls the raise, $250,000. As you can see, Ron, he's really queasy about this, isn't he?
Well, we know from that first indication that he does like his hand, but from the second indication, he doesn't like it that much. So he checks here. Georgia Tech checks behind, sees the hand that beat him, king with a very weak kicker, and he knows that he was one river bet away from possibly taking that pot away from Bucks.
Maybe Georgia Tech mentally also spent at that moment. Didn't think of that river bet.
Well, yeah, there is that, and we are going to see what that does later. But for now, I want you to watch for posture. Martin Corpus can hold his posture all throughout the tourney.
Meanwhile, Lakay here is giving us a whole catalog of different looks here on the table. And what does that mean to you, Ron?
Well, it's just that both players are tired, but some players can stay with their original posture more than others. It's just the one of the things that start to go as your energy levels sink lower, and your body just manages the energy and diverts it more into your brain, and it forgets the part where it has to hold your body still in a certain way. You see Georgia Tech here, same thing, shifting in his seat, giving you a catalog of looks, like you said.
And it's just giving away information, I guess, isn't it?
Well, the obvious information is that he's tired, but sometimes there are very subtle things that you can pick up.
Now, here's a hand that really illustrates the mental side of poker, where if you're not really on the ball, if you're not focused, you can make even the most basic of mistakes.
stamina thing. Stamina endurance doesn't just apply to how far you can run. It applies to how long can you think a certain way, stay on top of your game.
So Bucks is gonna act now, and he's gonna raise 26,000. He does not. We do not know what his whole cards are. He's in the dealer button.
We do know though that Mike is looking at Bucks on the button making a raise, and he's thinking could be a steal. Most of the time could be a steal. So he actually has a hand here, so he is gonna re-raise.
So Kua re-pops with the suited King Jack. Georgia Tech steps aside. 55,000 to call here for Bucks Di Maano. And he has position.
He has position, he has options, he could come back, but there is a certain dynamic where he thinks maybe Mike isn't always just re-stealing garbage. So here in this hand, he elects to flat call. And what I want to look at here is how this board turns out. It's very interesting.
They both check the flop with a paired flop with 2 9s, and then a 5 comes out on the turn. So 9 9 5 5. They both check again, and the river brings an ace.
Yeah, so right now Mike is playing the board and he shows his hand. Yes, he is playing the board, and Bucks mucks.
Now the reason why that's a bad muck is that it didn't matter what he had, right?
He could have had Boardwalk and Baltic Avenue in his hand and he could still play the board and chop that up. Now that's the less subtle effect of being really tired, is you miss these things.
And that's what Bucks is saying there. There was no reason for him to toss his cards. He just wasted a whole bunch of chips there and gave them to Mike Kua. So I guess you can say that the physicality of this tournament really got to Bucks.
Yeah, it's an underrated thing, but it's there, and you gotta be ready for it.
Fascinating. There's more poker coming your way. This is the Philippine Poker Tour.
Well, my name is Martin Corpus. My age is it's over 60, that's for sure. And I'm a retired U.S. Navy, resident of San Jose, California.
Well, we're seeing some great action here in the Philippine Poker Tour. Now, Ron, you've got this interesting theory about why these players seem to be hell-bent on handing their chips over to Martin Corpus.
Yes, Martin Corpus, like I said, is a very solid player. Tons of experience, does not make mistakes. I've played with him, I've watched him play, never seen him bluff, and yet players keep calling him when he bets. It doesn't make sense, except I'm gonna steal a term here that was applied to the late great Steve Jobs. They say Steve Jobs used to have a reality distortion field, that no matter what he was talking about, it turned into gold as soon as it was out of his mouth. Now Martin has the same kind of distortion field. Everybody knows when he bets it's good, but they're waiting for that one chance to catch him bluffing, and they always think this is that chance to catch him bluffing. And boom, they're wrong. Let's look at this hand now between Martin and Georgia Tech.
Okay, so in this hand, we are just three-handed here in the final table, and Martin Corpus with a very useful hand, Jack 10 suited in the dealer button. And what transpires, Ron?
Well, Martin makes a pretty standard raise from the dealer button three-handed, but it's also a decent hand. So Jojo, of course, is going to defend his big blind here, and they're going to come into a flop. Now, what makes this flop interesting, Bob, is not only does Martin hit trips, but that the fact that it's a paired flop. Most players would just bet into this whether or not they hit it. So Georgia is thinking about that and figures Martin's just betting to try to take down the pot, make this one call, see a turn, and see what happens. Now here's where it gets interesting. The 2 is a total break. It's sure it creates some flush draws, but Georgia's gonna check and Martin's gonna bet into this, a bigger bet yet again. Now you have to start thinking about who Martin is. He's not bluffing twice. Maybe he takes a stab, but the second bet has gotta be good. Jojo is calling here with a 9, actually, we don't see it, but he has to start thinking about that jack. Martin's creating a huge pot, that means he has a huge hand. Jojo checks again, Martin confirms here, firing that third barrel, he empties the clip into this board. He's definitely got a jack here, and Jojo in his right mind would know it, but reality distortion field. He makes the call. He has doubt in his head, he figures, I'll finally catch Martin without a jack. No. There's the jack, RDF, full effect.
And you saw there Martin Corpus so nonchalantly flipping over his Jack 10. You know, he never betrayed that he had a massive hand there on the flop. So hard to read.
Well, that's part of his arsenal. He's so laid back, he's so relaxed, bored almost. It makes him so hard to read, but it's even worse than that. Not only is he hard to read, he makes players read him wrong.
And that's why Jojo Tech ends up forking over a bunch of his chips. You mentioned there the paired board. A lot of players like to bet on a paired board with nothing because the opponent likely did not hit. However, Martin Corpus hit big time on that paired board.
Yeah, calling on that first bet was fine, but the second and third bet was sure indication that Martin is hit.
And now we go back in time in this tournament with more players on the table. A very good player here, Ian Brion, his second final table on the PPT, and he leads with a raise of 60,000 with King 10 suited from cutoff. Red Edok, another very seasoned player, is going to release. And Martin Corpus waking up with the aces, and interesting how he plays this hand.
What is especially interesting is he plays it very straightforward, but it looks like he's re-stealing from the small blind. That's what most players would do when they re-raise, but when Martin Corpus re-raises, there's only a few hands in his range. Very strong ones, aces, kings, queens, none of them that Ian should be calling. He has no business calling, and now he sees a flop with a king, he goes all in. It's like he totally forgot that Martin had re-raised pre-flop, representing only the biggest of the big hands. And now reality is gonna set in when the hands are tabled.
Martin Corpus probably texting somebody that, wow, I can't believe these guys are just shipping their chips to me, paying me off when I have a big hand. Corpus really is the kind of player who's so patient and also has that skill set to go deep in tournaments again and again.
And Ian is a same kind of player, very crafty, very patient. We've seen him in final tables more than once. And now he's gonna get crippled here in a hand that he probably should not have been here. Ian can smell a big hand from a mile away, but for some reason, he could not smell the aces on Martin Corpus. That's the distortion of reality.
And the king that he needed for the three of a kind never came, and I guess you don't want to overplay top pair, especially against Martin Corpus.
And Ian Brion is a veteran enough of the game to not overplay top pair. And in these two hands, Bob, I guess the point that we're trying to make here in watching both Jojo Tech and Ian pay off Martin is that in no sane universe should they be shipping chips his way when he's showing obvious strength. But somehow he turns these two sharks into guppies.
We are privileged in this final table to be in the presence of a true legend of Philippine poker, none other than retired Navy officer Martin Corpus. This gentleman has tangled with the greats of the game like Chip Reese and Doyle Brunson. He's been playing poker when most of these guys were still in diapers. Ron Regis, what makes Martin Corpus such a tough cookie?
So many things. I think the chief thing that a lot of people notice about Martin is even though he seems to play many different ways, he doesn't make mistakes. Now that's very misleading. You tend to forget that he doesn't make mistakes because he has this personality at the table where he likes to talk a lot. Sometimes there's a lot of chatter at the table. I had the misfortune of having to play him heads up, and the whole time he was talking. He was saying things like, "This is my game," or "You can keep calling, but you're not gonna win," or "You're ready to be second place." And I could not figure out if he's talking to get into my head, if he's talking because he has a good hand, or he just likes to talk.
They got three elements to be a winning player in poker, which, well, I'll tell you now, you gotta have, these three elements are gotta be you gotta have the time, the patience, and the bankroll. You need my fingers too? Alright. Open, you got ace queen, king queen. That's the only way I can beat. That's the only one I can beat, king queen. I told you that's a bad omen, man. You gotta listen to the elders, man. Yep. I haven't seen one yet. I've been playing 35 years old. The first player that won the first spot in the final table. Never won. It's on the record. Wala na magagawa yun kahit na-plug tuloy mo. Kukul ko na rin yun dahil sandaan na 110 na yung ginastos ko. Kaya wala ka na. Huwag ka na umangal. Ako na nga mag-bet sa plug nun eh. Hindi naman. Pero pang laban naman yung baraha. Hindi ka tulad ng Jack 5 yun. Jack 5 yun, natawanan mo.
Talo ka kung Jack 5 ako. 5-5.
Hindi ako mulang Jack 5. Kumula ko legit ang kamay, hindi yung Jack 5. I'm gonna get even sooner or later, right?
So there's your talker.
That's
there.
what I'm talking about.
Martin Corpus, but sometimes he can let his play or the cards do the talking. Here we are, three-handed. Jack 10 offsuit from the dealer button, and Martin just limps. Our chip leader, Bucks, is gonna complete the small blind, and Georgia Tech wraps the table with Jack 8 suited.
Nobody has anything exciting up till now.
It's a two pair for Georgia Tech, but there are two diamonds on the board, and Ronald DiMaano bets.
Yeah, it was a really quick bet. Quick probe to see if anyone's interested in this spot. Jojo, of course, is interested, but what's interesting is he doesn't raise, and Martin's going to come along with top pair.
So right now, Martin is in bad shape.
He is. Well, he's picked up a flush draw here, but he's still in bad shape.
Of course, and Ronald, passive play there, just checking.
Well, he's done with the hand. He took a stab, found out two people were interested in the hand, and now he's not. He's shutting down now, but Georgia has to turn it up.
Bets 120,000. Martin Corpus, really, what he probably thinks he's still pretty good here.
Well, he also has to think, did Jojo semi-bluff a flush draw and catch it here? But the other thought is, hey, I have top pair and I have a flush draw. I'm beating a lot of baby flushes if I hit it. And if Jojo is just drawing, as is sometimes the case, his jack could be good. Of course, Bucks is done with a hand, and this is a killer.
It's a king of diamonds. Martin Corpus has made his flush. Georgia Tech, what's going through his mind right now?
Well, this is kind of weird. He was in the big blind. He makes a big bet. He was in the big blind with Jack 8. Did not really want to play it. He played it soft flop, had a good hand. On the turn, a flush completed, decided to turn his two pair into a bluff representing a flush, and now he has to follow through on it. He's turned his good hand into a bluff here, and his only option is to hope he has bet enough to get Martin to give up any kind of diamond. Of course, the fact that Martin's thinking about this means he doesn't have a queen or ace or not even a jack of diamonds, so that's a little optimistic right now for Jojo that Martin's thinking about this hand. But Martin has a 10 of diamonds. He has to just figure out this mystery. Did Jojo really backdoor into a flush, or is he trying to bluff him off here?
And he's worrying that maybe Jojo has that ace of diamonds or the queen of diamonds, but he goes with his instincts, the 10 high flush, and it turns out well for him. There's a lot to be said about this hand, a lot to learn about this hand, right?
Well, you mentioned the word instincts. When you played as much and as long as Martin has, there are some spots where everything in your brain turns off, your instincts and your experience, tons of it take over, and they make the right call. Logically, it was easy to make a fold. Jojo can easily have a better flush, just as much as he could be bluffing. It could be a spot to fold, but the instincts were spot on there for Martin.
And I think Georgia Tech learning a tough lesson that you do not slow play or play softly two pair, especially when there's texture on that flop. There were two diamonds.
Well, as soon as the third diamond showed up, he played the hand the way he had to, and I have no problem with that, and it almost worked. Martin did not have that great of a flush. It was just that, in this case, experience trumped all the technical superiority that Jojo has over other players.
Georgia perhaps could have re-raised Bucks on the flop.
Well, that's one thing for sure, but he chose to play it the way he did, and he got picked off for it.
And he got crippled also. His stack was just decimated here at this point, and Georgia Tech was on the respirator after this massive pot that Martin Corpus won off him. And then eventually here, he's forced to go all in. And moments later, he's shaking hands with his table mates, and he is out. And let's hear what Georgia Tech had to say about his third place finish.
Oo, pwede kasi wala na papanalo kasi sa call niya. So, nambabab na rin ako sa river.
So why do they do it, Bob? I don't know. Another theory is just very simple, that he looks like a bluffer.
Well, let's see if this special trick of Martin Corpus is going to lead him to victory here on the Philippine Poker Tour. After several days of sensational poker, it has come down to this. Two players, Bucks DiMaano and Martin Corpus. Which one will win the 330,000 first prize? Which one will settle for the second prize of 160,000 pesos? Going into this heads up, Ron, what are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts is just to try to break it down to who has an advantage here right now. So let's go through it. Chip advantage. 2 million over here, 1.9 over there. I call it even. Experience, obviously, advantage goes to Martin. And a thing called desire. Who wants to win this more? Well, Martin's been in the World Series of Poker. And Bax has been to final table of the Filipino Poker Tour some years back. Didn't quite finish as high as the chance he has to finish now. So desire factor, I would give it to Bucks. That being said, this is still a very interesting heads up. There's a lot of chips to go around. Again, no chip advantage. So smart money would bet for experience, but you never know what could happen here.
Okay, let's not waste your time any further. Let's kick things off in our heads up with our tournament director, Brian Malantic.
The blinds are at 15,000, 30,000, antes of 4,000. We have 13 minutes remaining on this level. Good luck, players. Dealer, let's shuffle up and deal.
We are now heads up, and in heads up, of course, the dealer button is also the small blind, and the small blind acts first before the flop. Bucks is going to raise this to 80,000, and Martin Corpus with 10-6 of diamonds is gonna call, and that's a pretty good flop for him. He hits top pair but checks.
Yeah, he checks because he's not the kind of player who's going to put in a lot of money with top pair weak kicker. But he is definitely going to check call here.
The flop is a 5, so there are now 2 spades on the board. And Bucks is gonna send 150,000 out there.
Martin has shown no interest in the pot so far, so Bucks, I called him Bax earlier, Bucks is going to try to take it down now, and he's gonna get called.
And the river card, oh, it's a beauty for Martin Corpus. It completes his 3 of a kind, and he fires out 250,000 decision now here for Ronald Di Maano.
This bet is magical, actually. It's trickier than it looks. We know he has a 10, that's why he's betting. But if you're Bucks, you're looking at all the missed draws out there. The missed flush draws, the missed straight draws, all these desperate hands that have no hope of winning a showdown are now going to bet the river, and they're going to have to bet a big amount. And that's what he thinks Martin has. And so he calls it and he pays him off.
And Corpus will show his 3 of a kind, and since he's the aggressor, he has to show, but Ronald Di Maano doesn't. He mucks and will not know what he had. It's certainly not better than that. A big opening win for Martin Corpus.
Bucks, mucks.
Another hand here in heads up. The dealer button with Bucks. And out of the small blind, he is going to call with Queen 5 offsuit, Jack 6 offsuit from Martin, and both have hit.
They both get a little piece of it. Martin leads out to see if Bucks has any interest in the pot. He shows interest by calling, and Martin's shutting down here.
Martin has just caught a small piece of this, and he doesn't want the pot to become too big. It's a 10 of diamonds. They check, and Ronald will pick up a smallish pot.
Well, he didn't want to bet too much, not knowing if Martin could have had an ace, so check was good there.
Here we are again, Bucks in the small blind with the dealer button, and he has ace queen, and he's just gonna call. But Martin Corpus with big slick ace king, and what's his move? He's gonna throw 200,000 out there, and Ronald Di Maano quickly goes all in, and Martin Corpus snap call.
Neither one of them could have bet any quicker than they did. Quick re-raise all in, quick call, and quickly Bucks is gonna find out that he got the bad end of the setup.
Bucks is a big dog here right now. Ace King leading Ace Queen 70% over 30%, and Bucks Di Maano's tournament just might be coming to a close here.
Bob, here's how bad it is for Bucks. If the board completely misses both of them, Martin wins. If they both hit an ace, Martin wins. Bucks needs a queen to surge ahead, otherwise he's looking for strange situations like coming up with a straight or coughing up a chop. This is not that kind of situation with this board. Neither of them has a club, and it's all clubs.
Martin Corpus now very much in the lead. Ronald Di Maano praying for a queen.
Queen would be good. There's still a backdoor straight in it for him if a 10 and jack should come up, but a queen is just not what you see.
7 of hearts, and there's a wry smile now on Martin Corpus's face. He knows he's a 94% favorite to win this tournament.
Great atmosphere here in Metro Card Club. It's an 8 of hearts on the river. It's all over. Martin Corpus is your PPT Leg 4 champion. And Ronald Dimano has played so well this week, and he will come just short.
He played it just the way any other great poker player would have played it, but that was just a stroke of bad luck at the very end.
And Martin Corpus, the grizzled veteran, is our champion, takes home the big prize, and you can't say he didn't deserve it.
It's about time, Bob. He finished in the money in every single leg. The last leg was the final table. Finishes this one for good.
And Martin Corpus wins 330,000 pesos and a seat in our Tournament of Champions. We'll be back to make this official. After several days of heated action here in leg number 4 of the Philippine Poker Tour, we finally have a champion in Martin Corpus. But first, let's have a word. Let's have a word with our runner-up who had a fantastic tournament. He is with Ron Regis today, Box Dimano.
Thanks, Bob. Kasama ko yun si Box Dimano. Finished second. Played very well. Pero Box, tanong ko lang, meron kayong crucial hand that I think was a turning point sa heads-up nyo. The flop was 10 high, nag-check-check. And then you bet on the turn. When he checked to you, he called. On the river, nagpares yung 10, nag-lead out ng 250k si Martin. And you thought about that call for more than a minute. Tinawagan ka na ng 1-minute clock ni TD Brian. And what was going through your head at the time na tumaya si Martin nun?
Niisip ko, kung G's siya, talagang babayaran ko siya. Kasi 8, ang bara ko nun, Ace 8. Kaso, kaya matagal kong inisip, talagang si Tito Martin, matagal ko naging kalaban. Talagang hindi siya talaga legit siya maglaro. Napakadalang ang bluff pag kuman. Kaso talaga matigas ang ulo natin, poker player tayo. Hindi tayo naniniwala.
Yun nga, kahit napakadalang mag-bluff, baka yun na yung time na makatch mo siya.
Kasi may possible busted sa board.
Okay, so you thought long about it, pero na-call din, and it turns out hindi talaga siya nagba-bluff. Anyway, congrats sa second place, Box. It's still a very good finish. One of your best finishes, I think. Good game, man.
Thank you.
All right, Bob.
Okay, now I am with the champion of FPT Leg 4. They call you a legend, sir. You're now 330,000 pesos richer. Martin Corpus, your thoughts on this wonderful victory here on the PPT?
Well, first of all, I want to congratulate Jojo Aliado for being producing this kind of tournament. And I know it's going to be going for long. I know he's a good player. He outplayed a lot of players in the final table, but he forgot one thing, though. I was playing poker before he was even born. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, now I'd like to hand the mic over to the founder of the PPT, Mr. Attorney Jojo Aliado.
Thank you, thank you. Sa lahat ng mga pumunta, again, maraming salamat. Despite the double whammy of 2 long weekends, a lot of you still came in and took your chances and got to battle it out with other poker players. Kahit ako, hindi pa ako pinapanganak, naglalaro na si Tito Martin. Hindi lang naglalaro, nagwawagi na siya ng maraming tournament. Kaya, Tito Mart, it's my pride and pleasure to give you this iPad. I'm sure you'll figure it out.
Thank you. Okay, congratulations, Martin. And of course, a special thanks to our hosts for the 3rd time this season, Metro Card Club. Thank you very much, Nina Castro. And of course, our tournament director, Brian Malantic. Special thanks also to the lovely and amazing dealers, the staff here in Metro Card Club for making this possible. On behalf of everyone here in the PBT, thank you for watching our coverage and hope you can join us soon. Goodbye and God bless.